Hello viewers, Super GT here. Welcome to a race that got very heated very quickly. A very fun combination, but one which also resulted in a fair amount of carnage and argy-bargy, to put it politely. Now, take a look at this epic warm-up. That's how you do it. Now, I put a BMW livery onto this Nissan, which is possibly a crime against motorsport, so I might be in prison by the time you watch this. Right. Have a look at the grid there. We are starting 12th. Now, I put in what I consider to be a decent lap there. 130.496. Obviously, not good enough because here I am down in 12th. And this is one of the reasons why races can become very contentious. And that is when you have lots of similar rated players or players of similar ability or similar lap times in very close proximity to each other. That's when things can get very heated because you've got so many similar players in the same, occupying the same space and really trying to fight for supremacy. And often it's actually better to have a bit more of a spread so that everyone spreads out a bit more. But here we go. The Italian there just getting a little bit run wide. We're going to go side by side through this section. We're coming up into a fast sweeping left into a right. Quite an awkward braking point. We're going to stick up the inside of the Italian and move up into 11th. Now the cars we're using, Group 2, the second fastest class in the game. Very fast for tin tops, pretty much as fast as it gets. Lots of downforce on these cars, and you've got these two long straights on this circuit, so slipstream is very crucial, and therefore you want to make sure that going onto those straights you are within the slipstream range of the car in front, otherwise you're losing a good couple of tenths that you could have for free. So right now, I mean, the main priority for the next couple of corners is stay within the slipstream of the car in front, which I am doing an awful job of. And he's 0.65 ahead of a second, so I therefore need to make sure I don't lose 1/10. And guess what I do? He actually drops out of the slipstream. There we go, up to 0.8 of a second. This therefore makes me very vulnerable to Leonardo Pisoni 1. And he's actually going to look for a move into this turn 1. Really not the best place to look for a move. But then I thought the job was done there, but he comes flying in out of nowhere and takes the position. So massive dive bomb of the century has just been witnessed by everyone watching this video. And unfortunately we must have lost maybe 2 seconds from that alone. So very frustrating moment of the race, and we just have to kind of get on with it really. Lawrence 321 recovering from some sort of incident here. I'm not sure what happened, but he was up in second position, so obviously not good news for him. He moved down into 13th position, he moved down to. Therefore a net loss of 11 position. Marcus here going for the move. Check that on the radar. We're going to try to go around the outside. We're going to have to run side by side here, and it's always frustrating having to go side by side off the optimum line. Every time you do it, you're losing time to everyone else, and you can see that group just in front just beginning to edge away. At this point though, we don't know who's on the medium tyre and the soft tyre, so you have to use both during the course of the race. Often it makes sense to use the soft if you're starting at the front, the medium if you're starting at the back. I've gone with the medium tyre and just deciding when to go in for the soft tyre, the quicker tyre. So we already have someone going in at the end of lap 2. That might be too soon, and we'll see towards the end, I suppose. End of lap number 3. Still a very close pack. I'm going to peel to the left-hand side, change over to the soft tyre, and this is hopefully where I should be a little bit quicker. Get away from the pack, get away from the group, just at least for a couple of laps, put in some nice fast clean laps, and then we gain time this way. Now, Portuguese player there is actually Brazilian. It's Igor Fraga, one of the best players in the world, former world champion in fact. Zavicic as well, very, very accomplished Gran Turismo player. So in good company here in this lobby, lots of very fast players, and as I mentioned earlier, when you've got so many similar rated players or fast players, all vying for supremacy, it can get heated very quickly. So by this point here, we're going to skip forward to lap number 6. I went down to 18th after the pit stop. It was quite an early pit stop. and we've gained a couple after some people went in for their pit stops. Find ourselves now in 15th, right up behind Real Hollywood, and we have 6.5 laps left to go at this point of the race. Now coming down into the fast sweeping right here at the bottom of the hill, we're going to get a lot closer to the Italian. And quite frustratingly, it's very frustrating in a race like this when he starts defending for no real reason. He commits way too early on the brakes. So I tried to go around the outside and he just kind of edges me out. Kind of a weird move, weird decision, really, because he should have just taken the racing line. We both would have gained a lot of time. We probably lost half a second each there, just doing that unnecessary fight. Very frustrating because we're trying to catch up with everyone else. We should work together, really. He defends here, going to try it around the outside. Is it going to work? Not quite. Quite a frustrating moment there. We're trying to get past him. We caught up with him quite quickly, but then just struggling to actually find a way through. He doesn't get the best of exits there. Potential move down the bottom of the hill, firmly in the slipstream. He does not have the slipstream of the car in front. Therefore, we have a solid chance here. Let's see which side he decides to go. He's going to go to the right-hand side. He very much wants to defend this position. And, I mean, in my honest opinion, it's a little bit too soon in the race to start really defending this badly, because there's quite a few cars just in front, which we could definitely catch up with if we work together. And seeing as I caught him so quickly, he might as well just let me go and then get into the slipstream. But, you know, he doesn't have to. He can fight for his position all he wants. It's just not always the smartest thing to do. So into the final corner, lap number 7. Unfortunately, as we mentioned earlier, we need to keep into the slipstream range of the car in front. Didn't quite do that there, as we just began to come under attack from Leonardo behind, and he is therefore going to get our slipstream as we don't have the slipstream from the car in front. Italian just exiting the pit lane side by side through turn 1. Have to give him the space on the right hand side so he does not get introduced to our good friend Barry R, because that Barry is kind of sticking out on the exit of turn 1. Leonardo goes through. A little bit cleaner than the move at the beginning of lap 2. So we're going to just, okay, we'll follow him. We need to catch back up with Real Hollywood, who I know we're definitely quicker than that guy, so we can catch up with him, try to get past him together. Let's just try and work together at least a little bit. And certainly this is something that you need to do at times in races. You need to form alliances and at least work together for some part of the race, and then you can stab him in the back on the last lap and then try and win. So that's the main strategy anyway. Real Hollywood there going very wide on the exit of the final turn. Lap number 8, 4 to go by this point. So we're going to go through, going to hand him back the slipstream, and then through turn 1, flying through here. Wasn't sure if I should defend this one because he's not on the radar, he's quite far back. He's still going to go for the mega dive bomb, of course, out of nowhere, kind of pointless. And then I introduced him to our friend Barry R, or GR Arse, if you like, and said goodbye. It was just a very frustrating guy to race against because he didn't seem to have any sort of knowledge or race experience, racecraft. Just kept sending it, defending it, when we really could have been moving forward. Now, just looking ahead to that group, about 3 seconds behind this big group. There's about 5 cars in this group, so 4th place in this group. Now, all of a sudden, the gap came down to like 1.7 to the car in front. So Leonardo was actually very quick. He moved forward quite quickly into that, towards the back of that pack. And I just didn't quite have the pace. The soft tyres were wearing out by this point. So I did go in quite early for my tyres. But suddenly, a Portuguese driver into the barrier, burrs all over the place. So something has kicked off. We'll take a look at that later. I wasn't sure which side to go. Oh my goodness, almost a very big collision there. But we suddenly find ourselves in 7th position. So I started 12th, and I knew that it wasn't the best of races at the beginning. A couple of moments really didn't go my way. But then being patient, just waiting as he's actually flashing his lights. I mean, I'm not sure what I've done there. But we'll see in just a moment what happened to him. But by this point here, we have 1 lap left to go to try to holster our position here in 7th, which wouldn't be too bad of a return. 4th place is actually not too far away, and I think if a couple of moments just went my way, you know, at the beginning of lap 2 we lost maybe a second and a half just on 1 overtake, and a couple more moments like that. This is the problem when you're in the middle of the pack. Very easy to get embroiled in a battle you don't want to be in. You lose time, and it just really has a negative knock-on effect throughout the rest of the race. Into turn number 2 on the brakes on the inside. Not the best of lines, but we do manage to just keep our position. Marcus there just jumping up into 8th. So it's a big British battle here for 7th. There's 4 of us fighting for it. For this fast sweeping section, I think Marcus just struggling through that right-hander, especially in the turbulent wake of these Group 2 cars. Lots of dirty air being thrown off the back of these cars, so it's very hard to follow cars with high downforce through fast corners. Not much chance of a 4th, 5th or 6th here unless they really do something very silly. It's very much a case now of defending to the very end of the race. My tyres are absolutely shot. There's not much grip left on them at all. And by the time we're on the last race, we're going to have to defend every corner. As, well, we've only got a quarter of a lap left to go, so you might as well defend. Now, coming through here, Marcus very, very close indeed. I move immediately to the right to cover the inside line, into the final chicane, into the final corner. Just got to make sure we hit our braking point, make sure we don't overshoot it, and get through there just fine. Oh, Marcus almost into the sand there, or into the gravel. We are going to come across the line to finish in 7th. Now, that was a good result, I think, given it was our first race, and there was a couple of moments that really didn't go our way. But we can take a look at the replay in just a moment and see really how that one came to fruition, really, because it took a while. It was a slow burner, that one, and somehow that was a clean race. It really wasn't, I can assure you of that, because we're going to take a look at the replay now. And it's always good to do a post-mortem analysis to see who died, why they died, and who the killer was. So let's take a look here. Burrs, very fast player. We've raced him many times. He's a fast player, but he always seems to get involved in trouble. In this occasion, though, it wasn't his fault, I must be honest. But let's take a look at it. Leonardo, now he dive bombed us into this corner earlier in the race, and he's caused so much trouble here by firing off Silvestre, the Portuguese, the unsuspecting Portuguese driver there, getting absolutely launched into oblivion, and then losing a couple of positions. Now, these 3 managed to break away a little bit, Womble, Burrs and Naga. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Portuguese driver gets absolutely annihilated. Well, he kind of does because he goes into the wall, but it's actually Burrs who is really the one who gets annihilated. And I wondered, did this guy push him? No, not really. Silvestre just misjudged it on the way into the corner. Very easy to do when you've got a distraction. And I'm not sure why this Leonardo put his nose up the inside here on the left. You watch him here. Just puts his nose there. It's just a pointless move because you're not going to gain the position by doing that. And he actually goes through him. Silvestre goes through Burrs. Very interesting phenomenon there. Pretty much against the core identity of physics, but it happened. So perhaps we need to rewrite the physics textbooks, because what you're about to see here does not abide by the laws of mathematics. And what I must say is that very, very nice to see 2 drivers getting on so close and really getting to know each other. Look at that. They're both occupying the same space at the same time. They look like co-joined twins, pretty much. But it really is quite beautiful, isn't it? Moving on to the second race, right? I wanted to up my qualifying time, even if it was just by a couple of attempts. So I watched the #1 time in Europe, which is PR1 Josetti. Very, very fast Spanish driver. Really, really quick. Now, the thing I noticed, through the slow corners, it was gear choice and really getting very close to the walls. You notice he's on the little rumble strip on the inside every time. And he's on the power at exactly the right moment. He's in the right gear, and you see there he goes down to the first gear to actually rotate the car. So it's just really a showcase of perfect driving. And he sets a 29.1. So that's 1.3 seconds quicker than my time here. All I need to do really is just improve a little bit, a couple of attempts, and that's what I did on lap 7 at 30.299. I know I can go quicker, and this lap's feeling good. We get a really good exit there. The consistency was there. We were getting slowly quicker over the course of these 7, now 8 laps. There's a 30.170. Let's take a look at our quickest lap through the first corner, flat out through here, just minimise the steering. Looking for the shadow just before the 100 board here, and on the brakes just before that. Down into first gear for rotation, back into second for minimising wheel spin on the exit. This right-hander here, fearsome corner, you have to be very brave and committed. It is flat out, you have to get very close to the barrier. And it's this upcoming right-hand hairpin, which is very difficult to negotiate because the braking point is curved. Makes it very difficult to judge that one correctly. And I'm a little bit wide, and my exit wasn't all that great. Here as well, on the exit, you can see, I just grazed the barrier on the exit and lose maybe a tenth, or maybe 2/10, I would say, through that exit of that turn. Through the chicane here, it should be flat out for this right. I do have a slight lift as my entry line wasn't absolutely optimal. But into the final sequence then, flat out here, then braking pretty much on the apex on the left, down into first gear, back to second, on the power, and we're through there okay. Up to the line, it's going to be a 30.1, and that's a solid lap time. I'm quite happy with that. It's 0.9 slower than the number one in Europe, which is normally about where I am, so I'm quite happy. That put us in second for this race. So starting a lot further forward, and it's when you can start towards the front, let's say top sort of 4 positions, that's when you can really avoid the worst of the trouble. So that was good news. So now this race should be hopefully a different race. Starting from the front, you just want to break away from the majority of the pack in the middle, and then do your racing later on. So that qualifying session there was a good 9 laps, and we were fairly consistent. You might have noticed the last 3 laps of that qualifying session were all 1 minute 30.1s. So 3 laps within a tenth, fast laps as well. So I'm pretty happy with that consistency and that pace. It's time to try and do that in the race now. With tyre wear is a little bit harder. Starting on a soft tyre this time. And the main thing really at this point is just to stay in the slipstream with the car in front. Do not lose the toe, and then you've very much got a chance of winning. So down the hill, you see just how much of a benefit the slipstream is. Massive benefit down the hill, a couple of tenths. Into the fast right at the bottom. Actually, Lawrence overcommits slightly, very easy to do, and he goes defensive here. And I make the mistake of backing off slightly to let him take the racing line, because I wanted to try and move away from Amenti there in third. But if anything, all I do is introduce him into the battle once again. So, yeah, the decision making there wasn't quite on point. And this is the thing when you do these races, it's often a good idea to watch them back and just see, could I have made better decisions? Could I have done something a bit better? Of course, we could always improve our pace, but if you can make better decisions as well, then that always helps. That really does go a long way in racing. Into turn 1, a little bit overcommitted on the brakes. That's pretty much your time trial braking point. But when you're in the slipstream, you do want to brake a tiny bit earlier to compensate for the extra speed. And then go through there, just a bit of a lift because we are in the toe, the turbulent, dirty air. You can't turn quite as well as you'd like in the time trial. Very close, I think we did actually make contact there. Menti up the inside, trying to capitalise on that. And it's our fighting which is going to let Lawrence get away slightly. Just stays within slipstream range, but this is just on the edge of where I want to be. I ideally need to be a couple of tenths closer than this. So it's one of those races where you have to try and stay close to the car in front, try and ideally get past them, but also consider that there's a car behind you trying to get past you as well. So there's a lot to think about, and it's very easy in the time trial to nail your braking points because the car doesn't change. Your tyres stay exactly the same, the fuel load stays exactly the same, so everything remains static. But in this race, with changing tyre wear, changing fuel load, and sometimes in slipstream, sometimes not, your braking zone changes, so you have to keep on top of that and really judge that the best you can. End of lap 2, I wasn't in the toe, and that was quite frustrating, and Amenti was in my toe, but he didn't quite go for the move there into turn number 1, lap number 3 now. But it was going to be 1 lap later where he would, as we see here. I'm just beginning to drop away from Lawrence. He was just maybe a tenth or 2 quicker per lap. It's just these tiny differences. Then Amenti goes through into turn number 2 in the Honda NSX. So I thought, okay, that's fine. Let's just try and stick with him. He seems quick, Let's just try and follow him. And maybe he could pull us back towards Lawrence. That'll be an ideal scenario. We are pulling away from the guys behind. We're about 2 seconds in front of 4th place. But I just overcooked this corner, really just misjudge it. And it was very easy for me to say that corner was my problem corner. So I've at least identified my weakness. That's the corner I just could not get right. End of lap 7, deciding to go in, change our tyres, come back out, and we're still about 2 seconds away from Amenti. They were just slightly quicker. Now by this point here, Amenti seemed like he was the quickest driver in the race because he did manage to reel in Lawrence. He was outside the slipstream range, and their fighting was going to give me a vague glimmer of a chance of improving my position here. So I started 2nd, I'm in 3rd. They started fighting, and I was actually fairly confident on the medium tyres. I felt good, and I think I was actually quicker than Lawrence on this stint. But we are running out of time. This is the final lap, and we only really have one opportunity to go for this move, which will be a drag race to the line. Amenti goes for the move there, and I think that was probably too early to go for it. But let's see what happens here into the final sequence. Turning right, turning left. All I can do really is just spectate as Lawrence drives a little bit too wide onto the gravel, dips 2 wheels. Amenti going to pick a side. It's a drag race to the line between the two of them. Amenti is just going to get it. Lawrence absolutely kicking himself. And we've all been there. We've all lost races in the final corner. It's a horrible feeling. Lawrence led that one comfortably. 3rd of a second between the 3 of us. So a really good race and a big difference from that race to the first one. But there we go. I mean, Lawrence, very unfortunate because he did so well to lead that race for so long, but then just that one mistake, and that's all it takes. But there you go, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.